If you remember, we had worked on posts where we were used to create posts and display them on the main post page. Now this is the page I am going to make it secure so that only logged in users can access these pages or these posts. So now if I just reload without logging in, I'm still able to see that post. So let me put back the functionality, and the middleware we applied was the auth middleware. And let's do this in such a way that these login and sign up pages are also available only for guests. So if I am logged in, I should not be able to go to that login page. But in that case, if I am not logged in, I should be redirected to login page if I try to access the posts page. Now let's do the functionality behind this login page. So what we need is basically we need a post method on this login page and then create a function of authenticate. And let's also give this a name of authenticate, and let's open the form here and let's make it method post, and the action should be route authenticate, and don't forget to use the CSRF token. Next, we need to make sure that we have the name of email and then the name of password. Lastly, we need to make sure that we have the checkbox name also available. So set the value this to 1, and the name should be remember me, like so. And finally, we don't need the password forgot here, just as of now. Let's put it as it is. So now let's remove this one and set the type to submit. Now if I reload the page, everything still works. Now let's submit the form, and also let's copy the validation errors from our sign up page. So all we need is basically we need to copy this and paste it on top of the login page. That's it. Now let's create a function of authenticate, public function authenticate, and this will accept the request, and inside the request we need to catch the email. So the email is request input email, and lastly we have password. Like so. Now we need to check if the user is authenticated and the user does exist in the database. So all we need is basically if auth attempt, and inside the attempt we need to pass the credentials. So let's create a credentials array. So let's name it the variable credentials and set this to array, and this will check on email. So the email which we have got from the request email, and finally the password. The password will also come from here, and let's paste it here. So this will check if these credentials matches. Let me autocorrect the spelling. So if these credentials matches, then we need to redirect the user to the post page. So return redirect, and then use the intended here. So intended, what this will do, this will basically check if the request came from any other page other than login, and once the user will log in, the user will be redirected to that page on the website. Otherwise, if the user come from login page, the application will redirect it to the route we are going to provide here, which is basically the posts.index. I think so. This is the web page URL we have. Yep, this is the posts.index. Now if that doesn't work, what we need to do is basically we need to redirect the user back, and let's say redirect return redirect back with let's say error, and the error should be invalid username or password, like so. And this still will not work. We have not caught that error. This is basically the custom error that we have created here. So let me just paste the code of that custom error here in order to make sure that we are actually still getting those error messages on our web page. So this code will check if the session has any error. So this will obviously display the session error. So obviously these are the session error messages. So let me just remove these curly brackets from here because we don't need that, since this is a single line authentication. Now if I reload the page and let's try to sign in the user. So first of all, this is saying like the email is incorrect. So let's autofill this form with some dummy information, and you can see that this says invalid username or password. And what we also need to do is basically we need to get the old value from the form. So the old would be obviously only the email. We don't need the password here. Now if I just fill this one more time, submit, now the email it still doesn't work. This is the email, input type email. Let me just do this one more time. Autofill, sign in. This still doesn't work. This still does not set the value of the email. Anyways, let's forget this for now. But the main thing is that the user is not logging into the system. Now let's actually get the user from our database and get the email here, and let's fake fill the data and use the email which is basically used in our database. Now if I try to log in the user, this is not working. Let me check if there is any console error here. Nothing. We need to then check if the button is submit, and everything should be working. Let's hit that. Let me reload the page. Email, password could be anything. Okay, still it says username or password is invalid, but if I just fill this form, remove this one, email should be here. Now the form is submitted, and now you can see that we are now logged in and we are redirected to our posts page. Now if I try to go back to the login page, I will be redirected to home. Okay, so this is the home which we have, I think so, set in our auth service provider. Let me check that. I think so, route service provider, not auth service provider. Now we have this set to this main home page, so I'm going to make sure that this redirects to the login page. So if I go to the login page again, so obviously I am not logging in, so I should be, the default page should be the posts here. So let me just go to the login page again. It says like too many attempts because we have set the middleware in our application, so which was checking if there are too many attempts on the request. So that is why this is basically throwing us an error. Let me actually quickly go to that file and make sure we remove the that middleware in order to make sure that everything works. So we need to go to the HTTP kernel, and then here we had this rate limit, and we also set this rate limit in this one here. So now let me comment that, reload the page. Now you can see that we are now redirected to our posts page. Now the last thing which we have not yet covered is basically the remember me token. So if I just stay out of this page and maybe come back later after a couple of hours, I will be logged out, and what I want is basically I don't want my session to destroy automatically. So for that, what I can do is basically I can grab the value from this remember me, and let's set this value to here. Now the default value, we can also pass this the default value to 0. So if that remember me doesn't exist, or the user did not check that, so the default value will be 0. And all we need to do is basically we need to pass that as a second parameter. So you can see that the remember is automatically highlighted, and I can pass in the remember me. Now in that way, if I try to log in again or come back to the page maybe after a couple of days, I should still be logged in onto the system. All right, so that's how we can apply the authentication programmatically, and that's how the Laravel works for us out of the box. So we need to make sure that we do know these little basic things about Laravel before we actually dive into some ready-made third-party applications or packages. All right, that's about it, and I will see you in the next one.